Yeah, this is Open Mind Entertainment TV. I'm your host, Ghetto Shakes.
Yes, this is Open Your Mind TV. I'm the founder and host, Wahid Jamaat, also known as Shakes. And I'm here with Danny Simmons from the Corridor Gallery and also Rush Philanthropic Foundations.
Hey, what's up, Wahid? How you been, man?
How you doing, Danny, man?
All right, I'm glad you came over here to my house, man.
Oh, man. You don't even know, Danny. You really impressed me with giving me this interview for my show, you know?
Yeah, I don't know about impress you, but it was, it's kind of cool, man. I've known you for a while, man. I'm glad to see you doing this thing, man.
I'm trying to do my thing, Danny. You know me. I'm just, trying to level and ground myself as far as this entertainment industry is concerned, you know?
I hear you, man. You got history. You got history. Yo, man, what you want to ask me, man? You here to ask me something. I know we ain't here to pat each other on the back.
That's true. I just have a couple of questions as far as you being an artist and your family and things of that nature.
Sure.
But I'll start off with what actually inspired you to become an artist?
Well, I guess my mother was a painter and, amateur, but, she used to sit down with me as a kid and bring home art supplies and teach me how to paint. So I had been painting, and then, I grew up reading comic books. So I used to draw the comic book for the Hulk and Spider-Man and whatever, Captain America and whatnot. So, later on in life, I just translated that, my love of drawing and whatnot, into a love of painting. I started going to museums because my folks took me to museums. And I just naturally gravitated towards painting and whatnot. It wasn't until I was like in my early 30s that I really decided to make a career out of being a painter. My family didn't really believe, she was a painter, but she had a good city job. My father was a writer, he had a good city job. They were the good city job kind of people, get you a good city job, get a pension and all of that, and it turns out none of us did. Me, Russell, or Ron got a good city job. I did for a second. And, but, I decided, talked to my mother one day and I told her I was tired of I was a social worker. And I told her I was tired of being a social worker. And she said, well, go ahead and paint. Nobody's gonna let you starve. So I said, cool. And I stepped off. And I started opening the art galleries and stuff like that.
So, how did you come up with Def Poetry Jam?
Well, I'm a writer too. Like I said, I picked up both of my parents' talents. My mother's writing, my mother's painting, my father's writing. And my father used to write poetry. And all the time we were kids, he'd be reciting poetry around the house. He wrote poems about me, he wrote poems about Run, he wrote poems about Russell. And so, but actually, when I came up with Def Poetry Jam, Bruce George, who was a poet, rolled up on me one day and said, Dan, we got to take poetry to the next level. So I don't think he knew what that meant, and I didn't know what it meant at the time, but he knew there was something more that we could do with poetry. So we sat there and brainstormed. I said, well, let's make it a TV show. And we started thinking about MTV and this, that, and the other. I said, nah, that's too much trouble. Listen, Russell already got a show, Def Comedy Jam, with HBO. I said, let's just call this thing Def Poetry Jam, take it to HBO, and see if they want to do it. And I said, let's go shoot a pilot. And so we ran around the country, we built it. The first thing I had to go to Russell and say, Russell, can I use the Def Jam brand? And Russell was like, yeah. So I bullied him a little bit, big brother kind of thing, but he started to see the value of it. He said, yeah, you can use it, but protect it, don't. I said, man, I got you. So we ran around the country, me, Bruce, and a woman named Deborah Pointer, and started doing shows all in different cities called Def Poetry Jam. People started getting the buzz, and Russell's office started getting 100 calls a day, 200 calls a day about when are you going to do Def Poetry? So finally we did this big showcase on 23rd Street, and like 1,500 people came. Rakim performed, and a whole lot of the hip-hop folks performed and whatnot, Supernatural, and people like that. It was off the chain. And this is the first time Russell really saw the power of spoken word poetry. So he really got behind it after that when he started seeing kids, not the backpack dreadlock kids, but he started seeing hip-hop looking kids involved in poetry and whatnot. And then when he saw Black Ice, he was really sold. Black Ice was one of the poets that we put on Broadway. And so, that's what we came up with it. I knew the phone was going to ring. That's always foul. Right when you're in the middle of something, the phone rings. I'm going to let it ring, or you want me to answer it, tell them to call me back. Let it ring. Yo, excuse me. I'm doing a television interview, whoever this is. Can you call me back? Okay, thanks, James. Bye-bye. All right. So anyway, and so what?
How was it working with Stan Letto?
Well, you know, I knew Stan for a long time. I mean, Stan was one of Russell's good friends for many years, so I knew Stan from back in the beginning of Def Comedy, and you know, Stan's a legend in the field. So, you know, and that's Russell's partner in the film thing. So, you know, Russell said, listen, when we did another showcase and we did it at the Brooklyn Museum, he said, let me call Stan. And this time we had the older poet, Sonia Sanchez, and everybody. Stan came in and he was a little jet lagged, a little tired, but Sonia Sanchez did a poem. Stan started crying. He said, yo, whatever y'all got to do, man, I'm down with y'all to get this thing done.
So she sold the deal up, baby.
Sonia Sanchez sold that deal. He was like, oh, man. So Stan and Russell and me went over to HBO and started talking to the powers that be, and they didn't have a clue what we was talking about. They didn't know what the spoken word poetry was. So we had to do another showcase for them, and we did it at Malik Yorba's club. I can't remember, it was on 42nd Street. And that was off the hook. And the HBO people saw these people. So then we took it to Aspen Comedy Festival where they do all kinds of things. And they gave us 7 shows after that. And then it's been running, you know, for a while now, 6 seasons. We took a hiatus this season, that's right now, and hopefully we'll be back next season.
Yeah, man, I was wondering, where is Def Poetry Jam right now? You know?
Well, you know, it's probably on HBO In Demand. The old episodes. But right now, you know, they didn't say you ain't got a show no more, but they sort of like, you say, all right, man, we're going to take a break on this for a second. So we might be back next year.
That's beautiful, man, because as black people, we need more focus on spoken word.
You know, as black people, yeah, but everybody needs to hear poetry. Everybody needs to hear poetry, because poetry, people be talking about stuff, the real relevant stuff that affects people's lives every day. They talking about the war, they talking about what's happening in their neighborhoods, they talking about racism, they talk about all kinds of things that you don't really hear in regular hip hop.
Exactly.
You know, even though they brothers and sisters spoken word in hip hop, they be talking about things you don't really hear in regular hip hop. So, you know, it'd be enlightening people to the point where people like stop seeing their differences and start seeing their similarities. So, you know, it's important that black people, but it's probably even more important that white people hear it, because they get an idea of what the hell's really going on.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
So, where does your family originate from?
Africa, man.
No, I mean like the roots.
That's the roots. No, we were, you know, I guess if you're going back to my father was born in Baltimore, and my mother was born in Jamaica, Queens. And so me, Russell, and Run grew up in Jamaica, and then we moved to Hollis later on, and then you can start getting that Hollis story. But mostly we was from Jamaica, Queens, man, out there by Rochdale Village. We're Rochdale Village out there. And so when we moved out there, it was a racetrack, Jamaica racetrack. Yeah. And so, you know, we came out there, we grew up in a neighborhood. Behind our house was like acres and acres and acres of woods and shit. It's like we almost lived down south. Wow. You know, people had chickens in Jamaica, Queens back there, roosters and whatnot, man. You wake up, the rooster, some old country man up the block is roosters crowing and whatnot. Then we walk up to the pond, Baisley Park, and people be out there fishing. We had a real cool childhood, man. It was like
the 70s, right? The 60s.
Yeah, early 60s, man. I'm a little older than you think, man. You know?
Yeah. This is Ghetto Shakes, your host. I hope you enjoyed the show. Open Mind TV. Yeah. Keep your mind open. Keep your mind open.